Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts. We're coming to you today with another Phobies game breakdown, and it's time for more Throwtown, because I'm taking games and I'm punting them into the stratosphere. So we're going to take a look at a recent loss that I just had on stream and see if we can identify where things went wrong and what we should have done, put us in a better position to win. Yeah, shout out to YouTube, chat. So here we are. We're on one of the bigger maps. This is as we were talking about during the game, a 4-point map. And I always point out my personal throwback is Phyrexian Arena from Magic the Gathering. But anyway, other stuff aside, I decided to open with a 3-key opener here to bank specifically to 6. I put the Cassowary up north so that way we could threaten their stim pad if they tried to get cute with a jar, and then take points down here. Now, our opponent counters with Stabby and I think this was Mopsy, one of the resurrecting Jackalopes, which absolutely makes sense. I think that's a solid counter. They managed to keep balance with keys, and they have a resurrecting threat, so it makes it a little more challenging for me to try and actually get it off the board, especially early on. Now, my game plan was to get to 6 keys specifically for Erratic. I felt we could take a bunch of panic points and then have enough time to advance Erratic. But we're going to see in, I think, 2 turns, maybe 3 turns, probably 3 turns, where things start to go off the rails. I'm guesstimating. It was somewhere towards the early mid-game, something like that. So at this point, we're trying to advance Erratic, like I said, get into position, maybe pick off a key here or there, which is exactly what we do with this cat. So we end up pulling ours back. I was operating under the assumption that they were going to try and either take the point and I could sneak the cat back around or something like that. I chose to get sheep online, and I think this may have been mistake numero uno. So we got the sheep, but with the idea that we could hit both Stabby up here as well as Ginsting. Alternatively, we could have... How many keys do we have to start that turn? We had 5 keys. So I have Snaremaster, I have Woolly Bully, I have Cyclops, or Iclops. There are a few other 5-key units that we could have done. We also could have gone our own Ginsting or a number of other 4s, such as Unbearable. And Unbearable might have been better here to try and... Again, we have a little bit of an advantage as far as panic points go, life total, a little bit of board control. We have time to advance the Unbearable. The sheep here was not really... Because of the natural layout of the map, I think it's difficult to get good sheep connections. You know, you're not likely to hit 3 things, let's face it. You can hit 2, but our opponent only has 2 things right now that we want to hit or would be willing to hit. And we also popped it out before they proved to us that they had Clinico. It's something that, until I knew that healing phobies existed, I didn't really consider. But the fact of the matter is that this Clinico, a 3-cost phobie, basically eliminated our 4-cost phobie. There's really no way that we're going to connect with a good sheep and have it matter, because the poison is what matters for this. So instead, I have to pull back. We're still removing keys, so we're not in a terrible position. We get the aforementioned Unbearable. Now, it's arguable that this is a bad position. We could have advanced it more aggressively. I was concerned that maybe they would have dove us, because they have 3 range phobies that would all be able to hit it. They move Ginsting up, they move Stabby up, they move the jar down. And then any damage we put on it could be healed off with Clinico. But this would strain their Clinico. One of the reasons that I decided against it in-game is that we can't get this Sheeping Gas up there to connect with both of them. So we would have been hitting them for meaningless damage thanks to the Clinico, moving the sheep up, and then everything comes back down and collapses on the sheep. It maybe even kills it. So I kind of decided against it, went for this more defensive positioning with the idea that if they tried to cap this point, then we shell it, then we move in with sheep. We still have all of our tools available. Just throwing that out there. But instead, they come down here, bees all over our units, and they're able to put more damage on a bunch of things, namely this Cassowary. Now, the Cassowary survives with a sliver of health, which is important. But here's where I was talking about, and I was actually wrong, because I think I said it on turn 4, so turn 8, 4 turns later, is where things really start to fall apart for us. So let's take a look at the board position as we go into this turn. Unbearable basically doesn't exist. So here's one of the things with Phobies, is, and I'm trying to formulate this the more esoteric ideas, strategic esoteric ideas for the game, and one of them is similar to virtual card advantage in card games, where if you play in a certain way, or you only present certain threats, or you do certain things tactically or strategically in a card game, you gain virtual card advantage by making your opponent's cards dead. So if you play a deck with no minions or creatures or allies or whatever they're called in your game of choice, you just straight up have none, and your win condition is something else, whatever that is. All of your opponent's cards that are in their deck that are supposed to deal with those types of cards, the minions, the allies, the creatures, they're dead. They will do nothing. So every time your opponent draws one of those cards, it's effectively they drew nothing. In a similar vein, and this isn't a quite one-to-one analogy, there's probably a better way to put it, but our opponent has basically taken Unbearable out of the game for a turn and a half, maybe 2 turns. Because they're revolving around this side of the map, like this arc that they're setting up, or this cluster, it's going to take, if we moved Unbearable twice, we end up here. We don't even necessarily want it there, because they may, we're going to move it, they're going to react, maybe they can blow it up or severely damage it. If we try and keep rolling it up, it's just going to take a while for Unbearable to get online. We needed a better position for it, and again, the turn we got Sheep, it probably would have been better to crap out Unbearable, because Unbearable, imagine if Unbearable was where the Sheep is, it would never make it from that point, but, you know, if it was already just below this panic point, and now we're bringing Sheep online, or just something else entirely, because they've already presented Clinico. Realistically, Clinico wouldn't be on the map, but hopefully you follow what I'm saying. The idea here is that this Unbearable is effectively not in the game at this stage. It will get in the game later, but right now, we're trying to set this up, and I thought I saw an opening. So the idea here is we're going to quickly eliminate Jin State. We're going to put a bunch of damage on both the Jar and Clinico, and I thought we could, you know, capitalize on this from here. Now, we have 7 keys. We decided, and this was me, I think, being cute. This actually, well, maybe not. I have a few 7 keys. We have Flesh Crawler, we have Fish Tank, we have Alligator, we have this. We also still have Rambolina at 6. Rambolina probably would have been better, because we can get all up on all of this right away, but I thought, with this, we can drop this right on top of Jar. We're gonna kill the Jar. Like, they'd have to run it all the way out of the fight forever for it to matter. But here's the big problem. This Sheep coming in, I knew the Sheep was going to come in, and I thought that we would be okay with just tanking it. The Erratic would self-heal through the native undead life leech. Admittedly, I didn't properly count up the Sheep. But now is kind of the beginning of the end here, at least in my opinion. This turn really put us in a hole. Even though it doesn't seem like we're in that much of a hole, we're even on panic points. I'm pretty sure we're ahead on life total. Yeah, we're still full health. We're going to eliminate the Jar, but they have Mount Crushmore, they have a very healthy Voodoo, and they have a somewhat healthy Clinico. So the combination of these two is going to be big. This thing is kind of chunky, so they could heal it up. Also notable, their Sheep is very healthy. So let's watch and see what disaster befalls us here. So we end up getting the Jar, as mentioned. We roll up Unbearable so that way we can hit it. But here's the big problem. This Sheep is going to survive with 389 health. What I think we should have done in retrospect, if we look at the beginning of this turn, is we're obviously hitting the Sheep with Erratic. We can roll up Unbearable and hit the Sheep. There's no way they're killing Unbearable with the position they have. They could hit it twice with this for 800. They could hit it with this for another 1600. That's 14. But then they can't get this in range to be able to hit it. They could juggle Jar and then bring this in. And it would be doing like, so that's 4, 8, 12, 15 or so. Basically, I don't think there's any way that we can expect them to kill Unbearable. That means that we put the same amount of damage on, but if we instead fly this down, we can then hit the Sheep. Now, the problem is that this only has 1,700 health. So that would be, it's 8 here. This can roll down and lob at it. So that's 12. It's really 1250, we'll say. And then another 600 is 1,800. They probably can get it with damage with these 3 and then roll up Clinico to stand on it. And that's how they... You can finish off the jar with your own 2. Yes. The other jar, if we had gone for a jar, we could have... Well, actually, no. This one, yes, we could have. Yes, we could have. There was a different point later in the game, I think, when I tried to jar something and it wouldn't actually kill it. I thought it was at this stage, but... Yeah, we definitely could have gotten the jar. But basically, we needed this to come down and finish the sheep. Allowing the sheep to live was a big deal. I think this is the pivotal turn in this game where we lost it. Now... Would we have won the game if we made that correct play? I don't know, because like I said, it's entirely possible that we would have traded our pterodactyl plus essentially the erratic for like the sheep and the ginseng, which is a trade that favors our opponent. But ultimately, what ends up happening here is this. They heal the sheep up to not full, but 1,200 is pretty solid. We're not killing it with just the Cyclops. We're going to need extra help. And every extra attack that we have to sink into the sheeping gas means that those attacks are not getting spread to Crushmore. They're not getting spread to Stabby. And ultimately, this Moly Bully and everything else that shows up for the rest of the game end up living way more than they should have originally because we allowed the sheep to live. So what ended up happening, and I mentioned this while I was playing the game, I've been trying to force Pterodactyl in a lot of games just to play around with it more. Because while I've been on the other side, it isn't... You have to experience things from both sides, while playing against it and playing with it in order to get, like, the full scope of everything. And it's difficult to really determine what the strengths and weaknesses of something are without it, unless you're, like, just plainly better than I am currently at the game. We're still learning, and we're always trying to learn. So, point is that that initial mistake kind of snowballed from here. The domino effect is coming in, because you can see, like, now we're in a crippled position. We have damage on the Cyclops, who's never actually going to be worth a damn at this stage. If we try to advance the Pterodactyl or even really get involved for too long, it's just going to die. Not that we can't do that. If we advance the Stairmaster like we're going to, guess what? It's also going to die because Stabby's dimensional. Oh, by the way, Crushmore also dimensional, so we're going to take damage there. Really, at this point, as you can see, I'm out of keys. We're just praying. Our opponent, who has demonstrated thus far no egregious tactical errors, needed to make one for us to come back. Like, they'd have to run out of time on their turn and keep everything in range or something like that, where we can just get a good sweep, clear out a few phobies, pass turn, still be in a good position after that turn, and then we can turn the game around. At this point, it almost didn't matter what they summoned. I had mentioned that I thought it was a good idea that they went 2 small phobies instead of a singular big one. But realistically, it doesn't make a difference because their guys are all pretty healthy. The sludge guy here, I forget what his name is. Quagmire. I was going to say Grimes, but that's a different phobie. Is super healthy. Like, it was not going to go well. So we'll let this play out. Quagmire solo is the only reason you lost. I mean, Quagmire's very good, but that's... If we had gone into the turn that Quagmire came out in a... I mean, this is kind of a silly statement, but if we were in a better position, we would have done better. Well, yes. Duh. Like, yes, we get it. Words mean things, right? But I think that I don't think this was a... They out-leveled us, although I think they did, at least on the jar. I don't know about everything else. I didn't check all the different phobie levels. I don't think it was a matter of they... Oh, well, they had these specific phobies, so they beat us. This was... We made a mistake. Our opponent capitalized it. We deserve to lose the game. So GG, opponent. You outplayed us. The better player in this game won. Like I said, if we had changed the particular things that I was illuminating throughout the game and highlighting throughout the game, it doesn't guarantee us a win, but it clearly puts us in a much better position, and therefore, you know, we're continuing to play this game instead of watching the replay trying to figure out why we lost. But yeah, this is just going through the motions and we end up taking the L. It happens. But I think this is an important game to look at, how it's those subtle movements. Oh yeah, I need to protect my 7 cost because I invested so much. You got to get the value out of it, and sometimes you have to put your opponent in a position for them to make a mistake. Maybe they just never even bother going after it because they're like, oh, well, I can't kill it and stand on it, so what's the point? Well, maybe you can if they didn't count it up properly or something. You got to take those chances, and obviously the line we took didn't work out. But that'll do it for this particular game breakdown. If you're interested in seeing some live Phobies, definitely head over to Twitch. Check out my Twitch channel, RTChompGG. Definitely give me a like and a subscribe down below here on YouTube if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more Phobies content. And let me know down in the comments what other Phobies content you want to see. But as always, everybody, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and Black Lives Matter.